Hello, Largo64. This is one of my favorite personal questions, coming from my technical background, my love of computers, and my love of science fiction. Altogether, as a whole, I've spent an awful lot of time thinking about AI and what effect this has on humanity. But anyway, what it comes down to for me, to answer most of your questions, first off, the question of the soul. Well, obviously, being the kind of atheist that I am, I don't believe in souls. I don't think there's any reason to think that there is any part of your consciousness that survives the physical death of the supporting structures. So clearly, to me, clearly there is no soul, because your consciousness is supported purely by the physical structure of the brain, and of course then the further physical structures to support the brain, and has no existence beyond that. So soul surviving death and the whole nine yards, I don't buy any of it. So, but let's move on towards what makes somebody human, and consciousness, and self-aware, and sentience. These are all words that talk about what you were talking about, and you even used some of them yourself. To me, the key factor in deciding whether somebody deserves the rights of a sentient being, which in our modern society is only afforded to humans. I think that may be a little bit too restrictive. I think it's, as you pointed out, it's fairly clear that there are other creatures on our planet that are clearly also aware of themselves and their own existence. And at that level, I would consider them as sentient as well. I would consider that this would qualify a fairly large number of animals on our planet. I believe that dogs, cats, which you mentioned, dolphins, octopus, certain whales, porpoises, killer whales, for example. A lot of this, these whales, clearly. A lot of other higher mammals, including bears, cats, dogs, anything out of those categories of animals, clearly have a self-awareness level of sentience. Certainly almost all of the primates, although there are some primates that are clearly thinking less than that. But it's really hard for us to measure the level of consciousness and sentience of anything non-human. If it's human, it's easy for us to measure it because we can compare ourselves against ourselves using our own techniques. So when we go to try and gauge the sentience of one of these other life forms, it's very difficult for us. And the same thing is going to hold true when we start getting to the point where we can create machines with that level of intelligence and self-awareness. When is it going to happen? I don't know. I'm not sure that it's going to happen as soon as you think it might. It's quite possible that the level of complexity required before it kind of passes this misty veil of consciousness is going to be much higher than we think currently. The human brain is, well, the brains of basically any of these higher order animals are unimaginably complex. A digital computer operates with this whole on-off mentality, and it does its things very fast, in many ways faster than the brain operates at. But it's very linear, and very related to two choices. It's either on or off. And human brains don't work that way. Human brains work with massive numbers of choices and not necessarily on-off sort of state for any of these choices. So comparatively, human brains and animal brains operate in an analog world. Now, there are some digital parts to the way they operate, but as a whole, it's all in this sort of sliding world, meaning that we're capable of a level of complexity that is not immediately calculable the way that we can calculate how complex a computer is. So anyway, we will quite possibly be making computers that are significantly more complex than a human brain, and they still will not be developing consciousness. They will not necessarily be developing sentience. Now, on to what I think is really the most important question of all of this is we've now moved on to we have an AI. It meets the definitions of sentience. It's self-aware. It is capable of independent thought beyond the basic programming for which it was given. This, I think, is really kind of the key feature where we, decide, is this thing sentient? Now, I wouldn't describe it as human necessarily, but I would describe it as sentient. And as such, I believe all sentient beings deserve basic rights. We don't treat them badly. We don't force them to do things that they should, that they would not desire to do on their own. We have, at this point, we have to treat them as partners and not as property. And I think this is one thing that I think is wrong with the way we currently treat many of the higher order mammals and non-mammals, animals in general, on our planet. I believe that we treat them as property beyond our inherent rights to do so. Part of this, I think, is a result of religion. Religion has been teaching people that they are somehow better than the animals for so long, and that the animals are there purely for their own benefit for so long, that it's just kind of ingrained in our culture. So anyway, in the end, to me, to finish this all off, what I think is the key here is that when something is sentient, whether it's a machine, whether it's a cat or a dog or a whale or a chimpanzee, when something is clearly sentient, self-aware, and capable of a level of thought and abstraction beyond simple eat, shit, be done. If you've gotten beyond that, you deserve rights. You deserve basic, for lack of a better word, humane treatment. And this would even apply to the machine. I don't think we're going to see it in my lifetime. Not one that would pass my level of truth in sentience. In the meantime, until they truly become sentient, I believe they're tools that we use as we see fit. When that thing becomes a truly sentient being, then he deserves all the rights that we have.